All right. So Tom is going to start recording. Welcome to this online worship service for First Parish Church of Kingston, Massachusetts. My name is Jane Ford, and I am the worship associate for this meeting. And our speaker and worship leader this morning is our church member, Jacquie Hochstin, who is also a ministerial service. We are training Zoom associates this month, so bear with us if you happen to hear a tech hiccup or two. So our opening words, where then does wisdom come from? And where is the place of understanding? It's hidden from the eyes of the living and concealed from the birds of the air. God understands the way to it and knows its place. And he said to humankind, truly, the fear of the Lord, that is wisdom, and to depart from evil is understanding. If you wish to join me in the chalice lighting, please do so now. Spirit of life and love, compassionate one, hear us as we come into your presence, as we are reminded of our connection to you and to each other in the light of this chalice. May this light guide us as we search for peace, healing, courage, and awareness in the challenges of our everyday lives. In the moments of despair and doubt, help us to trust in you, our guide that brings us to equanimity and joy. Okay. Please join in hymn number 1002, Comfort Me. You can sing along while you're muted or hum, or just listen.
Comfort me, all my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, all my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, all my soul. Sing with me, sing with me, sing with me, all my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, all my soul. Speak for me, speak for me, speak for me, all my soul.
Good morning, folks. After this very eventful and strange week, I am the Reverend Monica Jacobson-Tennessen. I serve this church as its minister. And although we had planned for the service to be completely led by our ministerial student, Jacquie Hochstin, we decided to share the service today. As I prepared, I was remembering my experience in November of 2016, when I was an intern minister and I was scheduled to preach the Sunday after the election. And the day after the election, I got a call from my supervising minister, and he said, you know, I thought you were going to be preaching after someone else's election, and perhaps we should share the service because I feel the need to address the congregation too. And so now here I am, about 4 years later, sharing a service with a ministerial student, because one thing I have learned is that sometimes it takes multiple ministerial voices to even begin the work of addressing a week in the world. When I preached that weekend in 2016, I preached about the kyriarchy. Kyriarchy is one of many terms that have been coined to explain systems of oppression. We could try to talk about the imperialist, white supremacist, capitalist, hetero, cis patriarchy, but that's kind of a mouthful. So instead, sometimes we say kyriarchy, which contains racism, sexism, exploitation, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, ageism, environmental degradation, and extractive economics. It means the system in which most of what lives on Earth is seen as property, which is used and exploited and destroyed in the service of those at the top. The kyros, from the Greek word for Lord. This is what I preached 4 years ago because it's important that we call things by their names. And in 2016, that was the best name I had for what I saw happening. The way kyriarchy works, plenty of people who don't mean to support it still wind up supporting it because they haven't undertaken the practice of naming what is happening. Instead, things just seem like they are part of the way the world works. For so many people, men just seem like better leaders than women for some reason. Making more money, no matter what the other consequences might be, is always the best idea for some reason. People who are white seem more worthy of promotion and reward for some reason. It's too hard to build ways of working and being that welcome and include everyone of all ability and disability for some reason. And gender and sexuality are confusing and upsetting for some reason. Some of what we do here together is work on noticing these patterns, seeing these habits in our society, and challenging and unlearning them in ourselves and around us. These days, we more often call it white supremacy culture than kyriarchy, but no matter what you call it, it requires constant attention because all of these oppressions are everywhere. One of my seminary professors calls the kyriarchy the weed we will be pulling all our lives. And if you have ever pulled weeds, you know that sometimes they are small and sometimes they are very large. This week, on Wednesday, January 6th, a mob marched on the US Capitol building. It was a race riot. And like all the other race riots in US history, it was a group of white people determined to use violence and destruction to assert a hierarchy of power and control. The Times of India covered the news with the headline coup, C-O-U-P, Klux Klan, and they're not wrong. The United States has long had the presence of a group dedicated to oppressing Black folks, Jewish folks, and Catholic folks. And I do not think it's a coincidence that a violent, destructive mob marched to disrupt the confirmation of the election of a Catholic man and a Black and Indian woman to the highest offices in the land. On the same day, we learned that Georgia had elected its first Black male senator and first Jewish senator. It matters that we call things what they are. So I have to say now that what we saw on Wednesday was a symbolic lynching. There were scaffolds built with nooses in Washington, D.C., and there were many varieties of hateful ideology worn and displayed in the US Capitol. I'm not going to unpack them now. There are many good articles online that explain them. But it matters to say it was a lynching, a terror event intended to frighten people away from change and equity and justice, designed to scare people backwards. And it did not work. But still, however you are feeling this week, however you have felt since Wednesday, you feel that because you watched a shocking attack on a building that represents the ideals of our nation. You feel the ways you do because as we keep seeing more images and learning more about the plans of the mob, we learn more about the true potential of what might have unfolded. And we learn that it seems they had sympathizers and enablers among the people who should have stopped them. And as someone said to me yesterday, knowing the history of this country, I'm not surprised, but I am horrified. This is a kind of trauma, which means the first thing you must do is take care of yourself. Take breaks when you need them. You do not have to watch or read all the news. It is okay to take time to look away. Feel your feelings. Let yourself be angry and sad and frightened, and let those feelings move through you so you can feel something else. Connect with people. Call someone you love and talk about how you're doing. And move your body, because repetitive motion is helpful in processing trauma. Take care of yourself. And then take action. We are called to keep studying the past and helping to build the future. On Thursday, my colleague, the Reverend Annie Gonzalez-Milliken, wrote these words. I see a lot of people reminding us that it is a lie to say this is not America. Oh, this is America, they say, and of course they are right. Is armed white supremacist insurrectionists with guns storming into the Capitol building because they support a fascist president America? The America founded on the genocide of indigenous people and the labor of enslaved Africans and their descendants? The America of manifest destiny and lies about bootstraps? The America of lynching parties and police murdering with impunity? Is it America? Oh yes, it's America. But what I see when people say, this is not America, I see something else. I see people saying, this is not who I want us to be. I see people saying, this can change. Because on this land is also 500 years of indigenous resistance and survival, and Black resistance and survival. And on this land is the story of so many uprisings, strikes, revolts, marches, organizing meetings, mutual aid societies, underground safety networks, and so many movements for liberation. On this land, the long, hard work of organizers in Georgia made miracles happen again this week. The question then is not, is this America? It is, which world are we building? Are we building power among the people, investing in economic democracy, redistributing wealth, creating community safety plans and teams, defunding police and prisons? Are we living with hope and integrity and refusing to give in to fear-based concessions? Are we putting forward local candidates we believe in and voting out leaders who do not serve us? Are we getting ourselves and our people free? She says, this is not theoretical work. Start today. Call your elected officials or phone bank or donate or go to a training or an action hour, join a mutual aid network or an abolitionist organization. Because if we want a different America and a different world, it is going to take all of us. All of us unlearning all the violence and systems of supremacy we have been taught. All of us tearing down the institutions that uphold this violence. All of us creating a new world of care and connection and liberation, choice by choice, act by act, with rage and hope and grief and love. Another world is possible. Let's live into it. I am grateful to my colleague for her words, and I am grateful to Jacquie for sharing this service today. And she's going to say more to help name and process other facets of what happened on Wednesday, because it's important to call things what they are, and it's important to deal with our feelings. As we tell young children, you can feel everything that you feel, but you may not do unkind things with your feelings. And this is still good advice for adults. So I invite you, feel everything you feel and then let it pass through you. Don't bottle it up, and don't let it make you do unkind things to others or to yourself. Now, one thing worship should always do is give you hope. So here is a piece of what's giving me hope right now. I have been remembering that in the winter of 2015, when Hamilton was just becoming a big deal, Lin-Manuel Miranda gave an interview in which he was asked how his musical might shape the way we look at American history. And he talked about realizing that we have always been struggling and working toward a more perfect union. He said, you know, we didn't break the country. The country was never perfect, and there's been no fall from grace. I find that heartening, honestly, that we're still working on it. And I agree with him. It's heartening that we're still working on it. We make progress, sometimes in uneven lurches, and then we get pulled sideways or backwards by things we haven't dealt with. But it's not like our country was perfect and then we broke it. It's more that the fullest realization of America has never yet been. And that gives me hope and resolve. Things can be better, not through pretending that they used to be better or skipping over the stuff that is painful or disappointing or shameful. Things can get better when we grow in our capacity to identify and name the truth of what is wrong and what is right. To hold the complex reality that many things have been wrong and the promise of making things right in the days to come, and our capacity to lift up the good that is growing in these times and all times. It is ultimately religious work to live in these ways. It is work we are called to as Unitarian Universalists. We are called to a keener sense of truth and inquiry, a broader heart to hold brokenness and joy and sorrow and promise. We are called to faith that the more perfect union, the more just world that we have never yet lived in is possible and is worth our efforts to call it into being. There can be better days, and we will work to make it so. Now I'm going to invite Jen to lead us in a practice from the Buddhist tradition, the Tonglen practice, one that is designed to help us meet the world as it is with its full truth and do our parts to transform it.
Hi all, I'm so glad to be here to see all your faces and to share, as Monica mentioned, a practice that I hope might be helpful in these times. As Monica said, Tonglen is a meditation from the Buddhist tradition. It is one that focuses our attention on the pain and suffering of others and on our own capacity to love and heal that pain. The word Tonglen comes from the Tibetan language and it means taking and sending. And in Tonglen, we visualize taking the pain of others with every in-breath and sending out feelings of peace and love with every exhale. I thought in this moment, after the events of this week and the feelings that we are all having, that it might be helpful to practice a bit of Tonglen together, breathing in and breathing out with each other for the country and for the world. This particular meditation comes from Pema Chodron. You probably recognize her name. She is one of the teachers of Tibetan Buddhism in the West. This meditation has 4 stages, and I will lead us through them one at a time. I invite you to close your eyes or to get comfortable in whatever way works for you. First, I invite you to rest your mind for just a second or two in a state of openness or stillness. Traditionally, this stage of Tonglen is meant to bring us clarity about what is. Now we will breathe in the feeling of something hot, of something dark and heavy. Imagine that texture as you breathe in and know that this is the pain of others. Breathe in, breathe out. And as you breathe out a feeling of something cool, bright, light. It's a freshness. And this is your love and your healing. Do this, breathing in the texture of pain, hot, dark, and heavy, and the sense of freshness, breathing out this sense of freshness until it feels synchronized with your in-breath and your out-breath. I invite you now to think of any situation that is painful and real for you in this moment. Traditionally, we begin Tonglen with someone who is close to us, that we care for deeply and that we're feeling for and wish to help. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in their pain and their suffering and send out relief to them. Finally, we're going to try to make this taking in and sending out bigger. If you're doing it for someone that you love, that you care deeply for, you can make it bigger than just this one situation. You can make it bigger than just this one person. You can make this meditation for everyone who is feeling the pain that your loved one is feeling. If you want to extend this even further, you can do Tonglen for people that you consider your enemies, people who have hurt you or who have hurt others. Do Tonglen for them, thinking of them as having the same confusion and feelings of stuckness that your loved one has and that you yourself have had. Breathe in their pain. Send them relief. Our meditation has now ended, and I hope that you can take this practice with you and use it as you go about your days this week.
May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be filled with loving kindness. May I be well. May I be peaceful and at ease. May I be whole. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be filled with loving kindness. May you be well. May you be peaceful and at ease. May you be whole. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be whole.
Good morning, everybody. I will continue to build on Reverend Monica's naming as we look at our reaction to January 6th, which I will name moral injury, and a way to be with that reaction in the spiritual practice of prayerful lament. I first want to express my gratitude for your patience with me as I bring my theological and academic knowledge to you. I know I have a long way to go from straying from presenting this as an academic paper, but I'm working on it, and you are giving me the opportunity to practice that, and for that I'm grateful. My hope is that what we've shared around the practice of lament can be a meaningful place for you all to go to heal from the many losses we have and continue to share in our world today. Now more than ever, we need a spiritual practice that speaks to the truth, as Monica referenced, what we are feeling, both as individuals and as a shared community. So let's look again at the practice of lament. And in considering the events of this week, the practice of lamentation can be a place of healing in what I consider a deep attack on our moral orienting systems, referred to as moral injury. Moral injury's insidious effects too often include the rupture of any personal connection to the divine, anger at God, anger at oneself, at one's own moral disintegration, and isolation from faith communities that have previously fostered a connection to the larger story of faith. What is the moral orienting system? It's the dynamic interplay between one's values, desires, hopes, and expectations that comprise both our mind and our body, and a foundation that serves as a barometer for our moral identity, performing in a context with our beliefs, values, behaviors, and meaningful relationships, searching always for validation and avoiding disruption. When we enter into a social contract with one another, we bring that system with us. That contract has been desecrated this week. and shaken us from our moral foundations. We can hear the reference to moral injury from John Paul Ladark. He's a professor emeritus at the University of Notre Dame. He says, "We are a deeply wounded nation. We know from trauma studies that our bodies carry that harm, and that the deepest pain always is experienced closest to home. Our wider body politic carries not just the pain of what we've witnessed this week, we carry centuries of harm incited, delivered, and received from within our house." He says, "I've noticed that across a wide and deeply divided political spectrum, most everyone seems to speak for and protect the Constitution, almost as if it's a shared document and a victim. I would like to offer a deeper causality that lies within the loss of our basic social contract. We note its disappearance when toxic social dynamics spill into the mainstream of our collective lives. Dehumanization replaces basic respect. Blame supplants responsibility, and violence is justified over dialogue. He reminds us to act on, walk into what you know to be true. Start local. Reach out beyond your comfort zone. Commit to nonviolence and always protect the dignity of others. Walk together." Where do we begin this walk? One way we can begin is to explore our own theology in times of suffering, which is called upon more strongly. And our views are challenged in particular around trust in that theology. In Unitarian Universalism, there are many theologies, and our principle of a free and responsible search for truth and meaning guides that theology for most of us. When events happen in our lives that cause bewilderment and shock, they must be shared. Can we lament and still trust in that theology that guides our own spirituality? Can we trust and still lament? Events that injure us, the ones this week, confound our understanding of our own theology, which is God for some. An important place to find trust in that life can be harsh, but despite its harshness, we cannot despair of life's beauty. One way to a path of trust is through the practice of prayerful lament. As we examine suffering and our ways of being with suffering, we know that in order to be fully present to the moments of our lives that have suffering, requires great courage, hope, and trust. And as we look now at the biblical laments, in particular the book of Job, we're reminded how suffering can be all-consuming and test that trust we have in our belief system, whatever that may be. Job is an example of lament in all its form. He's angry, he's fearful, he's protesting, he's disappointed, he's feeling abandoned from his God. He questions, he explores, he doubts, he protests God for what has befallen him and his family. We can hear such desperation in his words when he curses his life and loses trust in his beliefs and purpose. The story of Job is a journey for Job and those around him around trust in their belief system that guides them. How then do we find our way back to trust in that theology that guides us? By placing words to those true feelings and being with the truth in a mindful and attentive way, which can be through prayerful lament. The Psalms are biblical prayers in the form of poetry. They cover an amazing variety of subjects: Poetry defies neat and simple, but somehow expresses the human experience in words through images that words cannot create. Walter Brueggemann, who is a theologian, in his work reminds us of the importance of lament for our renewal in our life and faith. When we pray for divine help, we are revisiting a covenant that we have made with that source of trust to intercede and deeply hear our cries for help. In the tradition of the biblical lament, that source is God, but that source is not always God for some of us. Some of us have framed our source of trust in the universe and other sources. But on some level, there is a covenantal relationship there, that expectation to be heard, even amidst emotions of anger and protest. In my last sermon, I quoted two authors, Billman and Migliori. They wrote a book called Rachel's Cry. And they say that a clear consequence of banishing the many moods of the Psalms of Lament, among them anguish, remorse, fury, protest, even hatred, is that we lose the essential resource in confronting the very emotions that terrify us. In a context where we might receive some help in admitting them, understanding them, and coping with them. And as Reverend Monica alluded to, naming them. So in closing, I would like to offer some thoughts on creating your own lament. By formulating an issue and identifying with the oppressed, which could be yourself. Begin by recalling a painful situation or a situation of injustice. Allow what is deep within you to surface in that situation and beyond you, as well as what might need to occur for it to be rectified, and for which you will intercede. Be in touch with the variety and the depth of the emotions that are evoked by that situation. And call on that source that you find trust in, and that is the center of your theology. And listen deeply to your prayer of lament. Blessed be.
Please join in listening or singing with our voices muted our next hymn, which is 1031, Filled with Loving Kindness.
Oh, nope. Hang on a second, Tom. Bring it back to Jane.
Oh, okay. What did I do?
It's okay. We're ready for the offering.
Oh, okay. Forgot about that one.
That's okay.
Never forget about the offering. We wouldn't exist without offerings. At this time in our service, we receive an offering to support the work of this congregation. You may contribute to the offering using the online giving link, text to give, or by mailing a check to the church office. All the giving information can be found in your email order of service. Please know that what you give will be most gratefully received. And our offering music this morning is Tomorrow by the 2020 General Assembly Virtual Choir.
There will be better days. 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 be better days. There will 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 be better
So now it's time in the service for us to extinguish our chalice and share some words from John O'Donohue called Bless This Space. May you be blessed in the holy names of those who, without you knowing it, help to carry and lighten your pain. May you know serenity when you are called to enter the house of suffering. May a window of light always surprise you. May you be granted the wisdom to avoid false resistance. When suffering knocks on the door of your life, may you glimpse its eventual gifts. May you be able to receive the fruits of suffering. May memory bless and protect you with the hard-earned light of past travail, to remind you that you have survived before, and though the darkness now is deep, you will soon see approaching light. May the grace of time heal your wounds. May you know that though the storm might rage, not a hair of your head will be harmed.
At this time in our service, we're going to stop our recording to allow our community to share their joys and sorrows in privacy among the community. Thank you for joining us this morning.